We're live. Hello, everybody. How is everybody?
Doing good.
Welcome, and thanks for participating to everybody out there. And a disclaimer: we are not getting paid to do this, but we wanted to execute this town hall meeting to help by giving back, by giving you true and free information to our community. So when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit our cities in March, it hit hard, and we were faced with the unknown. Now we know the health risks, death toll, and financial upheaval that it has caused, especially in the Black and Brown communities. So the experts want to get you ready and to keep you ready going forward. So now I'm going to introduce you to our experts. But first, just to let you know, if you have any questions, please, for our experts, please post them in the message board, and we will have a Q&A afterwards. After the town hall, we will try and answer as many questions as possible. So keep the questions coming and just drop them in, and we will hopefully get them all answered for you afterwards. And we first want to thank our producer behind the scene, Princess Jen, who is in and from Detroit. So let me introduce our panels. First, we have Marcelle Coleman. She's a licensed professional counselor. Then we will have Marlon K. Scott, certified retirement and planning counselor of Wealth Standard Financial. Say hi. Hi, Marlon.
Hey.
We will have Marlon's not waving tonight. Then we will have Nicole Kirkland, CPA, by the number, and then attorney Shalonda C. Leggs from the C. Smith Law Group.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so let's get going. We know Marcelle Coleman is going to go first. So I'm going to get your presentation ready, Marcelle.
All right. Thanks, Wendy.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Wait, let me hold on one quick sec.
So we're looking
Technical
for
difficulty.
PowerPoint.
Because I have to share screen.
Okay.
Here we go. Hold on. There you go. Can you see that?
I don't see it. I can't see anything.
You don't see it?
No, I don't see the
hold on.
PowerPoint.
Okay, we'll stop screen. Hold on. Okay, now let's share screen.
I did see your screen, Wendy, but I didn't see the PowerPoint.
You didn't see the PowerPoint? Okay.
I saw the share, but what you were showing was something.
Oh, there it is. I see it. Got it. Okay, you see it now?
That's me.
Okay, there you
Thank
go.
you. Wow. So good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Marcelle Coleman. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I don't see the PowerPoint, Wendy. Yeah. So you can go to the next slide. So tonight I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit about how we have addressed our mental health and well-being, and how we can do a lot better going forward, because when you have more information, you're more prepared. So as we go to the next screen, we're going to just start trying to unpack what we need to know to get ready. And I'm going to be sharing some tips, some strategies, and give you an opportunity to kind of become more aware of what you experienced before about your mental health and well-being, and how you can move forward knowing more about how this impacted you and how you can do better. Wendy. So as we move along tonight, all of the experts we're kind of integrating our conversation. So when we talk about what questions you need to ask yourself tonight, I want you to ask yourself, who are you today? Because the last 5 months has taken a toll on a lot of the things that we thought were normal in our lives. So we've had to make some adjustments. Then we're going to talk about how are you feeling, when you should reach out for support, because having certain feelings, although they may be negative, doesn't always mean you need help. So we're going to try to help you get a little bit more clear about that. We're going to have some resources for you. And also, we're going to have a crisis plan template that you can walk away with and create it, because we don't know when this is going to be over. So we want to make sure that you're ready, and that you can stay ready from here on, Wendy. So, as I said, who we are today is significantly shifted the last 5 months. We were just sort of thrown into this pandemic. Certain shifts happen in our personal lives, happen in our professional lives, happen with our kids. So I want you to be thinking about, where were you 5 months ago? And I'm taking us back to February, where some of us probably experienced it a much later, maybe March. But just take a short reflection about that. And so we've faced many challenges, but we're still here. If you're on this live stream tonight, you made it and you're here. So we can celebrate that. And then also, we have all been tasked to look at our mental and emotional wellness a lot different. For some of us, it's right in front of us every day, because some folks may be dealing with mental health challenges every day. And for the rest of us, we've had to tap into those emotions and feelings that sometimes felt uncomfortable, but yet you have been able to recognize some trouble spots. And then some folks have been just resilient and they've coped well, but we just want to make sure that we're all prepared as we move forward. Wendy, next slide. So I have a list of some changes. Go back one. I'm going to talk a little bit about some changes that many of us have experienced. And I just want you to listen to me and just think about your own status. So, if you've been endured changes in employment status, many people were laid off. Some people had to begin to work remotely. Some people suffered in their businesses. We also know that children, the youngest and the most innocent of us all, had to go through a lot of changes. Maybe they had to be homeschooled. You had to be the parent and the teacher. They had to deal with social isolation very different than we did, because school is a big part of their socialization process. So we've had to either spend more time with them, helping them to really stay alert and fully engaged, or we've had to deal with some changes and shifts in their behaviors as well. Also, your financial health probably toppled a little bit. You had to, your budget maybe had to be restricted a little bit. We also know that we all had to interact in the healthcare system, whether directly or indirectly, on behalf of a family member, maybe calling, maybe getting tested, maybe having some things going on in the community, where we've seen in the television where our frontline workers are really, going through some stresses trying to help our family members and our community members. Also, the way we socialize, social isolation is a new term that we all had to kind of get with very quickly. It was supposed to help us to be safe and more healthy, but yet the way that we network with people had changed, how we communicated. Zoom became our friend, or other online products we had to use to communicate with loved ones. Some of us haven't seen our loved ones in many, many weeks. If they lived out of state or they lived too far, most of us couldn't travel. Um, Also, the way that we view the news. If you were a person that stayed in front of the television, hopefully looked at stations that you could rely on. So all of these do impact the way that we experience stress, and therefore it impacts our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and everything that we know, because we were hearing some conflicting reports, we were hearing good reports. So we want to pay attention to that as we move forward. Also, traumatic experiences. We won't get too deep into that, but we know that some people in our families and our communities actually experience grief, the loss of a loved one, a loved one being in the hospital. And some folks were in the hospital that were not dealing with the coronavirus, but they were there because of other reasons. So, and we're still going through it. One good thing about this live webcast today is that we're kind of on the other side of the isolation piece, but we're now in a place where we're learning how to cope and bring some normalcy back into our lives, but yet things are still different. We look at the community different. We look at the person coming up the escalator behind us different at the store. So I want you to know that these are real changes that everyone around the world, this was not a epidemic, it was a pandemic, it was global. So we're all sort of dealing with these changes. And I just wanted to ask you what sounds familiar here, because these are all typical things that many of us have had to deal with. So I don't want you to know, I want you to know that you weren't by yourself, and you're still not by yourself. And so as you look at this list, some of these are going to be talked through tonight by other experts. So just know that there are answers for you. And Wendy, you can go to the next slide. And I know that we are changed forever, but we can get through it. And you get through it with information. You get through it with knowing when enough is enough, knowing when to get help and how to get help. And I think the big part of mental health and emotional health is knowing that you can access health. You don't have to be in a full-blown crisis, but we want to give you some information tonight so that you can assess yourself first. And if you are in need of additional support, then we're giving you that information so that you can move forward. Wendy, thank you. The next slide. So we're continuing to getting ready and staying ready. That's how you stay prepared. As Wendy announced, that's what we're talking about tonight. Next slide. So I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about what are you feeling. I want to highlight some typical responses that many of us have experienced. And I say us because we all experience these at certain levels. And because they are normal responses to stress, the ideal is to know that you're feeling it. And if it is getting too hard, then that's when you ask for help. Wendy, the next slide. So here are some typical emotions that many of us experienced during the pandemic. The next slide. So we frozen. Next slide. Can we go to the next slide? Can you guys hear me? Hi, Wendy. Can you go to the next slide? So once we go to the next slide, we're going to be talking about some specific emotions that, oh, she is frozen. Some specific, so some of the emotions that some of us have endured. Panic is one emotion that could have come up for you once you found out that you couldn't go back to work or that you had to homeschool your kids. Now, panic on a lower level, it just means that, you just feel like you don't know what to do. Then we have anxiety. Anxiety is another emotion that many of us were feeling, worried, not really sure what was going to happen next. Things seem too unpredictable. Worried about your children, where they're going to learn, where they're going to make it through the year. Fear was another emotion that came up. Sadness, and there's a sense of helplessness that we feel, especially as adults, because in a typical day, you're working, you are able to provide for your family, and then all of a sudden, when that has stopped or stalled, the next step is, how do I help myself and how do I help my family? And this area of uncertainty that even now we're still in. So these are some emotions that have come up from the surface. And if you are a person that has a history of or some type of diagnosis where you're dealing with some of these on a day-to-day basis, sometimes that even made it worse. So what we're trying to talk about tonight is, how to get help and how to continue to receive the help that you're getting. Because when the pandemic happened, most of the mental health and emotional health practitioners had to go online. Their office doors had to close. So we want you to know that even when that happens, if it happens again, if we're ever in a situation like that, that there are resources that can offer you support through your health insurance is one thing. Then there are a lot of other organizations and agencies that have really trailblazed this past 5 months and really put things into place in all of our states. And we have some links at the end of this live cast that you'll be able to go to find those resources. The next slide. So I talked a little bit about those emotions, and on the surface, if we hear those in any typical day, they sound negative, but what they are normal. What we have to know is when we go from normal to an emergency. So to know that you felt panic, to know that you had worry, to know that you felt helpless until things worked out financially or things worked out with the kids, that's okay. And we want you to know that that's normal. But what we want you to check in on yourself today, are you still feeling these emotions? Where are you feeling them? And how intense is that happening as you look at this live cast? Because some of our community folks are still concerned about finances. They're still concerned about whether their kids are going to go to school, whether they're going to go online. Even thinking about it can bring some of those feelings up. So these are typical responses to a crisis that I shared. But the next slide, we're going to talk about how to know. We're going to talk here about how stress affects us. And I really wanted to bring this up because a lot of folks don't really know that their body, their thoughts, their emotions, everything about you changes. Your heartbeat races. You could have physical pains. You could have headaches. You could feel overwhelmed emotionally. Your mood can change. You can be isolating a lot more. Now, we're not here to give you the impression that you're feeling those things. I want you to know that when you're under a stress response that is so against who you really are, and if you're responding to the pandemic or anything that's happened to you, and you're at a place where you don't feel like you can help yourself anymore, then that's when you want to reach out to get help. Okay, Wendy. So one of the keys that I want to give to you tonight is self-awareness is the key to really being in tune to how you're feeling mentally and emotionally. If you are aware of your own body, your own mind, you're aware. And if you're not aware and people share with you, hey, you've changed. Hey, you okay? You don't come out as much. I don't hear from you. Those are really keys to let you know that maybe you're not aware. Other people may make you aware. So this is a time where we are taking better care of ourselves and we're taking better care of each other. So it's not a time to feel like, someone is just trying to figure out what's going on with you. It's time to listen and just take a step back and say, wow, have I changed? Has this gotten to me more than it normally would? So we want to talk about being more self-aware, not just about a mental and emotional well-being, but all the things that we talked about so far, that if things are out of hand and you're not coping as well as you should be or could be, we can always be doing much better. Okay, next slide. So when your stress response reaches a higher level of distress, it's time to reach out for a higher level of care and support. And so a higher level of care, we relate to that in our world is maybe, sometimes you can go to a counselor online or you can meet with a doctor on the video. And sometimes you just might need to go into an office. So your higher level of care may have changed from the way it was before, because if you needed a high level of care during the pandemic, you couldn't just run into an emergency room. You had to call in and maybe get an appointment with someone online. So what you do here is be very honest, be very forthright with any assessments that come up for you, whether it's with your primary doctor, whether it's with a professional. We're all here to help you with those red flags and help you to get help in the next level of care. And support is a different thing. We look at support. Primary support is very important. Family, friends, people you can depend on. So your support network is very important to your key to getting better, feeling better, and getting back on your feet. So all right. So identifying your stresses or effective ways to cope with them. Remember that you can learn to control stress because stress comes from how we respond. And this is really key. Having really good coping mechanisms in your life, how you deal with stress is very important. Everyone has dealt with some stressful event leading up to the pandemic. Even our kids have. So, as an adult, if you had a stressful life event that you consider to be stressful, ask yourself, how did I respond to that? Did I respond in a way that I got over it quicker? Did I go get help? Did people have to tell me to get help? So knowing how you respond before is a good indicator of how you will respond in this time. And again, we're on the other side of the major social isolation, a lot of the grief and the complexity of how we had to deal with our loved ones who passed away, that were in the hospital. We couldn't go see them. We had to call and talk with doctors and nurses. So we really had to learn to trust our healthcare providers even more, because normally when your family members in the hospital or they go there, someone goes with them, and we had to look at that in a very different way. So how did you respond to those stressors will determine how you can even cope better as we move forward. The next slide. And I think we're going to do and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I asked earlier to look at how you respond to stress situations in the past. How did you cope? How long did the feeling last? Um, how did you feel afterwards? And really, how did you come out of that stressful situation? Some of us are really good at talking to others. Some of us have a good support system. They rallied around us. Some folks had to live in the same houses. That could be stressful, but it can also be a support as well. How were you thinking? Did you go straight to negative thoughts, or were you able to use your faith or use some other level of coping? Did you journal? Did you listen to music? How did you shift the way you were thinking in those months and times when we did not have the outlets that we could, just get in our car and drive to the next place or go to the movies? All those things change. So how was your thinking? How was your behavior? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 meaning that everything was perfect, and 10 meaning that it was very severe. And I do know that some people watching this webcast probably did have to reach out and get another level of care. So ask yourself, between 1 to 10, how did you actually cope with the pandemic? But more than that, how do you cope every day with normal stressors, financial stressors, dealing with sick loved ones? How did you handle your kids being at home every day? No one expected it to be perfect, but it's a good indicator of how you're going to, really do as we move through this pandemic or post-pandemic. The next slide. So this is not an exhaustive list, but effective tips to help deal with stress. And some of these are counterintuitive for most of us, because if you're the head of the household, or if you're the strong person in the family, or if you're single, these things are very important to either making some changes in the way that you've dealt with stress, or moments like having a pandemic or having a crisis, even a weather crisis. Tornadoes, things like that, they do still come up. So we're not just looking at it for today. We're looking at it, even if your lights go off with a storm, you still have a moment of stress and a moment where planning and preparation is key. So accepting the things and the events that you cannot control. No one could control what happened to us as citizens here in the United States and abroad. No one could pay their way out of this. Nobody could, talk to their friends to get out of it. This was a big deal. So this was something that we had to really say, wow, we have to accept this, and then we have to rely on people that we trust and those who are in charge of giving us the right information to help us to feel more confident that we are being taken care of. Exercising can be a really good way to deal with stress, walking around the block, exercising in your house. And if you're fortunate enough to have places in your community that you can go to, exercise will always help the body rid itself of those stress responses that could be negative. Getting enough rest and sleep, feeling worried and anxious, the last thing you do is sleep. So we have to tap into the idea that, if we're feeling those things and we're not sleeping at night or we're getting limited sleep, probably call your physician, call somebody. And if it's different from what if you're working overnight, then this would not apply to you because you don't sleep overnight, but you do have to sleep sometime. So making sure you get enough rest, your social support is so important. And the social support is anybody and anyone who you can trust to come to your aid, make a call to you. It can be a family member, it could be friends, it could be your church. Make sure that you know who you can call on, and make sure people know that they can call on you, because really that's all we had. And also seeking help or treatment, we talked about that. And also a big thing that many folks who don't know how to say no and don't know how to create boundaries to take care of themselves first. So we're talking about self-care. We're going to cover that toward the end of this. So we'll talk a little bit more about self-care and self-compassion. And those are two things that you can do for yourself, and that you can gain skills to help you to become more in tune and taking care of yourself first, because you can't take care of other people when you haven't taken care of yourself. And next slide. All right. Thank you, Wendy. So now, okay.
So next we're going to have Marlon K. Scott. Hi, Marlon.
Okay. Am I up? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. You're on.
Okay, good. Good. All right. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So what I want to talk about is I am a financial planner. I am a stockbroker. We've got several names for what I do. Not sure what the level of understanding or appreciation is for our industry, so I will start with basics. A financial planner or a financial advisor is someone who handles all of the things in your house that you deal with that has a dollar sign. So if you have questions about your life insurance, I can help you there. If you have questions about your stocks, your mutual funds, your ETFs, your 401k at work, I can help you there. So those are the things that a financial advisor or planner deals with. And again, I'm not sure what your level of sophistication is, or if you've dealt with one before. So excuse me if I'm talking too basic there. Where can you find a financial planner? There are several sources, if you will. There's the big ones, big companies that you've heard of before: Merrill Lynch, UBS, Morgan Stanley, Ameriprise Financial, those types of companies. And then you can also find a financial advisor with someone that's independent, maybe someone that you know that has their own business, or even someone at a bank or a credit union. They also can assist you. So those are the places you can find them. What are the fees? It all varies. Some advisors are fee-based, so they deal with clients on an asset level basis, and some deal with you on a transactional basis, meaning you pay for when you buy and sell stock, or you pay when you buy and sell ETFs, or when you buy and sell mutual funds. Okay. Now, let me give you a little bit of an update on what's happening in the markets. So when this pandemic hit, at the beginning of March, the Dow at the beginning of March was or the S&P, and what the S&P is the Standard & Poor's 500. Those are the 500 largest companies out there, and it's used as a gauge to dictate how the market is doing. And the S&P was at 3,090 at the beginning of March. At the end of March, it was 2,585. So that was a 20% drop in 1 month. A lot of people freaked out. A lot of people wanted to get out of their 401ks. A lot of people wanted to sell the stocks or mutual funds, whatever they had. And in essence, were panicking. They were thinking back to the bad days of 2008. I'm sure we all remember those days when we thought that the world was coming to an end. But what we learned is that it didn't, and things got a lot better in March of 2009, and we've been on the upswing ever since. So that 1 month, though, scared us a little bit. We were down 20%. Since then, however, if we look at the market as of July, where are we? As of last week, we are up to 32.25. So the market from the low to now has taken a 44% jump. Now, a lot of people don't realize that because they simply have the March losses in their minds, and they listen to people and they see things on Facebook and they see things on Twitter that are all negative, but the market has actually recovered quite a bit. So one of the things that actually brings me to one of the points is when you're dealing with financial matters, it's really important to get a second opinion. If you hear something that doesn't make sense or something that may be overblown, try to get some other opinion on that same matter. In other words, if you hear that the market is dropping and we need to sell, ask someone else, especially someone that you trust, someone who knows the market, and get their opinion and then make your decision. One of the things I try to stress to my clients as well as to anybody who asks me of advice is stop listening to people who don't have a lot of money, okay? Yeah, they have good intentions. Yes, your uncle and your cousin and your parent, for that matter, may want the best for you, but their knowledge may not be the best. So be careful listening to people who don't have the necessary expertise. We're missing out on a lot of opportunities as a people. So that's one of the things I wanted to stress from an advice standpoint. Find someone that you trust, who you believe in, to counsel you on your finances. We all are in a much better position, most likely, than our parents were. So what we want to make sure of is that we are in a position to make sure that our kids are better off than we are. Okay, so find someone you trust, get advice from them, or if there's no one in your family, then hire a financial advisor. I would obviously love for you to talk to me, but if you don't talk to me, talk to someone. We cannot do all this on our own. Okay, everybody needs a coach. Tiger's the best golfer in the world. Tiger Woods has a coach. MJ, he pretty much taught himself, but somebody was coaching Michael Jordan. Okay, so we all need coaches. If you're, well, I'll come back to that later, but we all need some coaches. One of the things that you may be confused about, and I'm kind of bouncing around here because we've only got a limited amount of time, but I want to hit some key points. One of the things you may hear is that the stock market is maybe taking off when the economy may be doing bad, and that doesn't make sense. That's kind of a dichotomy, but what happens is that the market looks 12 to 18 months in advance. So the market sees the future because the market is looking at companies and what their earnings are and what their guidance is. Guidance simply means what their projections are in the future. So that's what the stock market looks at. Whereas right now, this month, next month, the economy may be tanking. And that doesn't make sense to you, but that's the way the market acts and reacts. So a positive sign is if the market is doing well while the economy is doing bad, that should give you optimism that things are going to get better in the future. It may not be right now, but the market, the experts, the analysts, those people who are paid to look into the future see better times ahead. And in this case right now, a lot of that has to do with us thinking that in 12 to 18 months or less, likely less, there'll be a vaccine for the COVID virus. So with that in mind, the market tends to do better. So that may be a bit of an area that confuses people. So wanted to throw that out. One of the things I also get questions about is the Federal Reserve. Many wonder why the Federal Reserve does what it does and what the purpose is. Again, I don't mean to speak down to you, but I don't know what your level of understanding of the markets is. So bear with me. The Federal Reserve tries to take behavior by managing interest rates. So when the market is down, or should I say the economy is down, people are not spending, the Federal Reserve is going to drop interest rates because they want to encourage spending. They want people to get out there and borrow and generate money and produce goods, transactions, etc. So rates will be dropped, and right now it's rates are about at zero. And the converse works, that if the market is overheated, or should I say the economy is overheated, there's a lot going on in the economy, then the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates because they want that spending to slow down. Otherwise, it will be inflationary. So just a little bit there. Okay, this area or this presentation is all about preparing yourself. One of the things that you want to do is make sure that you've got an emergency fund, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but because you don't want to be in this same position again, potentially in the fall, if we get what they call phase 2 of this downturn, you want to have enough money in the bank so that you don't run into desperate straits. So 3 to 6, actually 6 months is best if you can, but at least 3 months of cash in the bank is advisable. I do realize that in a lot of cases that's hard to do because we're living check to check. However, if you are able to do that, please put aside enough money off of each check. Some things you may have to do without, some vacations, some shopping sprees, some things you just may need to cut back on so that you can build that cash reserve, because again, you don't want to be in this position the next time the market takes a turn. If you are interested in making sure that your investments, or that you've got some investments in place, then you want to contact, as I said, someone like myself, either me or someone like me, so that you can start working on your portfolio. If you feel like, well, I was a finance major, I was an accounting major in school, I can figure this out myself, and you can do it yourself, feel free. But if you start, you need to finish. So don't start working on it yourself and then not look at it for 3, 6, 9 months, because you could lose 10, 20% in the blink of an eye. So if you start doing it, just keep doing it yourself. Charles Schwab, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, those are some of the companies that you can go to if you want to do it yourself. And then you've got some other places that will allow you to do trades and for zero commissions. So don't go online and use any other platforms that are going to charge you commissions for trades, because nowadays everybody is charging zero commissions on your online trades. Okay? One of the first things I do with my clients is to create a financial plan. So make that a part of what you're going to do also when you're planning to be ready for the next downturn. The first financial plan or budget is probably not going to be as accurate as the next month. And then the month after that is going to be even more accurate than the previous month, because you've got to get yourself in the habit of tracking your expenses and following some discipline. Okay. So part of a financial plan that we do for you is get you a budget, to a cash flow, meaning the money that comes in and comes out, that's your cash flow, and then do a net worth statement. That's simply your assets minus your liabilities, which tells you what your net worth is. All of my big clients, all my millionaire clients, they know right off the bat what their net worth is, because that's how that. We tend to, or some of the average investor will tend to look at, what am I making? What's my W-2? What's my 1040 look like? That's not the way the ultra wealthy look. They're all about their net worth, because it's not what you make, it's what you keep, and they realize that. Okay, so part of that financial plan, we're going to do a cash flow statement. We're going to look at your net worth. We're going to do a budget. Okay, again, if you don't use a financial advisor, one like myself, and you do it yourself, those are 3 elements that are key in order for you to get yourself in shape. One last piece before I get into some a few advice items is, because we are in a position much better than our parents were, then we want to make sure that our kids are in a better position than we are. So try your best to put some money aside. Start small if you have to, $10, $20, or based on some of what you guys make, maybe $100, $200 a week, a month, whatever. Do something. Put money aside while they're young, so that they can build for by the time they get into their high school ages or into their college ages. I mean, you'd be shocked how much just a little bit a month now, throwing some money into Apple, into Google, into Disney, into those stocks that you know are going to be here, putting some money in there, and by the time they get out of high school, you got college paid for. I mean, just think about if you would have thrown some money into Apple or Amazon or Google when it started, you could have bought probably 2 or 3 houses with that by now. So make sure we do something for our kids. Retirement is another piece, and let me throw this in there also. Retirement is another piece that I talk about, especially for people around my age. Our company, we're getting past those, that thought of throwing everything into tax deferred vehicles like 401ks and 403bs and IRAs. We're looking more at tax free things like Roth IRAs and universal life cash value insurance policies. Those allow you to insurance allows you to set aside money for retirement. I know that's something that we haven't thought of or didn't realize. It's not just a death benefit, but those universal life policies can actually be used for retirement. So that's something that I definitely try to get across to my when we talk. Again, away from and out of so many tax deferred IRAs and 401ks. Not that I don't want my clients to use a 401k, because I want you to at least get the match, but anything beyond that, we need to put it somewhere else. You'll get different opinions from other advisors, but that's the way we look at it at our firm. And just a few advice items from a mental standpoint. Try to get, and this kind of piggybacks on what Marshall was talking about. Don't expose yourself so much to the negative side of what's going on, because you can look at TV, CNBC, CNN, etc., and you see negative things on the market, and then you get stuck on that, and it drives you crazy. Don't do that, especially not in the morning. Don't start your day like that. You need to, and I tell my clients that you need to have some type of morning ritual that you go through every morning, some type of spiritual aspect, some type of motivational aspect, and get your mind in a positive frame of mind, especially when if you're in somewhere like Houston and hitting that traffic. You need a positive framework, because it can get ridiculous. Now, it may not be the case right now because everybody's working from home, but you still need it, because when them kids wake up, so don't get caught up with the negative. Don't get caught up with the with the bad news early in the morning. For those of you who are Christians, realize that the more you make, the more you're able to give. Okay, so if you feel like you want to do what you think God has you here to do, then stop wasting so much money on things that aren't permanent. Okay, do things that will help you build your wealth so that you can give to the church or give to your favorite charity and help other people. Okay, that's extremely important, not just for those people who are receiving it, but for you as well. Okay, that gives you something that makes you feel good, and again, that piggybacks on some of the things Marshall was talking about, and puts you in a better place. And all of that has to do with finances, so that you're not in a position of or in a place of scarcity, but in a position of abundance. That's all I've got for now, Wendy. You're on mute, I think.
Hi, okay, thank you. I'm up. So next we're gonna have Nicole Kirkland, CPA, and I'm gonna go back to share screen for you, Nicole.
Okie doke. While she's bringing that up, hi everyone. I am going to talk about some of the topics that I get a lot of questions about, just to kind of bring some updates and kind of talk about some things that are happening in the finance area as far as what's going on with COVID. So the first area that I want to talk about is, let's see what slide we're at.
My mistake. There
No,
we
it's
go.
okay. Okay, you can go to the next slide. The number one question that I get is about stimulus. So the round one stimulus update. So about 160 million taxpayers right now have received their stimulus by either direct deposit, paper check, or debit card. If you have not received your payment, do not worry. They expect that this will continue through September, right? Because with everything, the shutdowns and things like that, you know, as you can expect, they're behind schedule, but things are still coming along. So don't fret, your payment will come. There is a Get My Payment app. So you can go to irs.gov, Get My Payment, to check the status of your stimulus. Now, there's been some stories that people go to this site and they see that their payment, they can't get information regarding their payment. This can happen for two reasons. And I want to put these reasons out there because a lot of people are finding this. So a reason for delay can be one, that you don't qualify. If you're single and you make over $75,000, you won't qualify. And if you're married over 150,000, you won't qualify. So that's one area. And then also your return may still be in process. So if you filed 2018 or 2019 recently, they're going to take whichever is the most recent and then process that. So if you just finished out the tax season, you will not find any information for at least another 2 to 3 weeks. So I want to put that out there because a lot of people are starting to worry about whether or not they'll receive their payment. I just want to give pause to say it's coming. Another question that I get is the second round of stimulus. So right now, there is a bill that has been proposed for $3 trillion. It's called the HEROES Act. And right now it has passed the House in May and it's awaiting to be debated in the Senate. So we right now don't know if it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. But this proposal will, for the average household, give about $2,100 for families. And this is an increase from the prior round, which was about $1,700 on average. This will be a little bit different for children. In the first round, you know that the 17 and 18-year-olds were not included. I got a lot of phone calls on that, but this second round, they will be included. The proposal also extends the $600 additional unemployment. It will take that through January 2021. And it also extends for independent contractors and self-employed to receive benefits through March 2021. So this is something that a lot of people would like to see happen, but like I said, we just have to keep watching the news, see what's going on, and see if they actually pass that. So that's the stimulus. And another question I get is about the payroll protection program. A lot of people were extended loans, and it's going to be coming around that time, right, in August for the 8-week period, and then they also extended it for 24 weeks. So you have the option to take the 8-week or do the 24 weeks. If you do 24 weeks, if you receive your check in, say, May, you will have until October to spend out those funds. The loans were given out for payroll costs to retain or rehire employees. And the new rules that were passed, the initial rule was 75% payroll, 25% for non-payroll costs. They changed that to now it's 60% for payroll costs, 40% for non-payroll costs, which helps a lot of businesses spend out their money as they may need it more. So that's all I'll say about the PPP. The repayment is for 5 years at 1%. So in all, if you find that you have to use your expenses for outside of payroll and it becomes unforgivable, it's still a decent loan at 5 years at 1%. And then they also have a new PPEZ form for businesses that are self-employed with no employees. So that's a nice add that they gave because that PPP application was causing people some issues as well. Okay, so how to prepare. So a lot of people found with the whole businesses shutting down and having to be furloughed or losing hours or just finding a decrease in their time at work, that they had to file unemployment. So I wanted to give some information on unemployment and what that process looks like, just in case we find that we go through another surge and that businesses have to close for a period of time under the shelter order. So under the CARES Act, they've increased the weeks for unemployment to be 39 weeks. Used to be 26 weeks, right? And then if you have, if you do receive unemployment, there's an additional $600 a week that you receive as well. Now, this is expected to end as far as July 31st, unless they pass the HEROES Act, which will also extend that. If your hours are reduced, you also still may qualify for unemployment. So within your state, if you're in Michigan, there's some information that I've posted that will have pretty much everything I've talked about, different links. There's also a link for unemployment to kind of tell you what the rules are for unemployment in your state. If you're employed and you have to take time off work under the CARES Act, you also get time off for seeking help for yourself. If you become sick or if you are seeking diagnosis, you can get up to 2 weeks of pay from work. If you need time off to care for a family member, you can get up to 2 weeks from work. And if you're caring for a child while school is closed, you can get up to 12 weeks from work. And these benefits are set to last through December 31st. Where are we? You can extend to the next slide. Okay, so we talked about unemployment. So in terms of debt, when you look at debt, I just wanted to, and Marlon kind of spoke to this, so I won't spend a lot of time here. But in terms of debt, just looking at taking advantage of negotiations now. We don't know what's going to happen as far as people's wages. So time is now, because a lot of the debtors are working with people on modifying loans, negotiating new terms, reducing interest, which will lower your payment. Another area to consider as far as debt is student loans. So under the CARES Act, you can suspend your interest and principal through September 30th, 2020. Under the HEROES Act, if they do pass that, this will extend until September 2021. So of course, another great option for that HEROES Act to pass. And right now you're accruing, if you are under that suspension, you accrue no interest right now. So any payments you make will go towards principal. So it's a good time if you did take advantage of that to make payments to kind of not loans go on forever. And it's also a good time with, like Marlon said, interest rates are low, to refinance your student loans or refinance your car, refinance your mortgage. And I also have links. Go to the next slide. I also have links that talk about housing assistance, mortgage assistance, and student loan, or that CARES Act, because I'm giving a lot of information, but the resource that I put into the panel at Eventbrite will give you links to get more information as you need it. And so lastly, I just want to talk about how to stay prepared. Just some tips. Marlon touched on a few of them, but I wanted to go into a few more. You can go to the next slide. So know your numbers. Very important in terms of just looking at your budget right now. Marlon talked about this as well. So limit large purchases. Right now is not the time to go out because the interest rate is low and just kind of buy large amounts because we don't know what's coming. So I would say be more cautious in that area. Create and stick to a budget. As Marlon mentioned, build an emergency fund. So if you are able to remodify some of your debt, which allows more cash in the pocket, I would say shift that to build the emergency fund as he talked about. Limit online shopping. This is a huge area, even for myself. I think a lot of us, in terms of what Marshall brought to the table, was that we try to seek normalcy. So of course, shopping is normal for us. You know, we used to go out to the mall and, you know, online shopping has become the new norm, but limit shopping in that regard and just tend to save more money. Let's see what else. I would say organize your documents as well. As Marlon talked about, find someone you trust to let them know where all your information is in one centralized location. And when I say information, I mean birth certificates, social security cards, life insurance information. Organize it all in one place so that if something unfortunately happens, there's some place for someone to go to get the information they need to help in your estate or any other needs. And Shalonda will speak to that more. And also, you know, not to be in fear, but just to give yourself peace of mind, have a survival plan, a survival kit. In my resources, there's a link to the Red Cross to kind of give information on how to build your own kit. Not to say go out and spend a bunch of money, but you may have some of those items at home, just putting them in a centralized place so that you know how to access them if you need them. And then health-wise, no matter what you believe about the virus, people are getting sick. So take care of yourself, build your immune system, you know, eat more fruits and vegetables, water, exercise. so that your body can fight for you. And so those are just my tips. I know I went kind of quickly for sake of time. I wanted people to have time to answer questions and ask questions. But like I said, at the end of my speak is a resource page for links with everything I've talked about to give more information as needed. Thank you.
Okay, next we have attorney Shalonda C. Legs. Hey, Shalonda.
Hi, Wendy, and thanks. That was good information, Nicole. Um, so I'm an attorney. I'm licensed to practice here in Michigan. So I want to preface this by saying that if you're not in Michigan, it's very important that you listen to what I say, but check for the accuracy of it for the state that you may be in, because the laws are different from state to state. Well, it's called Get Ready and Stay Ready. So let's talk about things that you can do now. I'm an estate planning attorney. I'm also a probate attorney. So the things that you can do now is to contact an attorney and have them draft a financial power of attorney for you. A financial power of attorney allows a person that you select to manage your finances and your business if you should become ill and unable to do so yourself. If you do not have a financial power of attorney and you become ill, then your loved one, should they need to manage your finances and don't have access to it, will need to file an emergency petition in your county's probate court and request to be appointed a conservator. You also should have what we call in Michigan a patient advocate designation. Some people refer to this as a medical power of attorney, but the legal term in Michigan is a patient advocate designation. It allows the person that you select to make medical decisions on your behalf should you become incapacitated and unable to make those decisions. It can be temporary, but you want the person that you select to make those decisions. Make sure the person that you select is someone you've discussed your wishes with and who will follow the plans that you want for your life, not necessarily the plans that your other loved ones may want for you. If you do not have a patient advocate designation, then your loved one will need to file an emergency petition and the probate court of your county to be appointed your guardian. Now, the thing with guardianships and conservatorships is that any person who's interested in you can go to court and file the petition, and then there'll be a court proceeding. So it is possible that someone whom you would not want to manage your finances or to make medical decisions on your behalf could be, in fact, appointed your conservator or your guardian. So I always say it's best to make your decisions ahead of time so that exactly what you want is known and is followed through. With a patient advocate designation, it also has a HIPAA waiver. We've all gone to the hospital and they make us, or the doctor, and they make us sign that form saying that we acknowledge that they will not share our medical documentation with anyone that we haven't given prior consent to. Well, if you're unable to speak, you can't necessarily say, hey, that's my son, that's my husband, that's my wife. It's okay to discuss my medical information with him or her. So you want to make sure you have that waiver in place, because without the waiver, then your loved one, should the hospital really enforce HIPAA, they won't have the information necessary so that they can make those decisions on your behalf. At the very bare minimum, you should have a will. A will simply allows you to direct where and to whom your assets will go should you die. Also understand that a will only comes into play once you're dead. No one looks at it while you're alive because it doesn't have any legal effect. Those things that have a legal effect while you're alive are patient advocate designations and financial power of attorneys. The last thing I'll say as it relates to things to do now is look at your life insurance. Marlon touched on it. Nicole touched on it, but I'm going to touch on it from a probate perspective. And that would be A life insurance policy has a beneficiary on it, and whomever's name is down there as the beneficiary will inherit whatever your policy is. So if you are now divorced and you still have your former spouse's name down, then they are the ones who will get the money. So make sure you look at your life insurance and look at the beneficiary designation that's on there. Things to do if your loved one is ill: contact a probate attorney. If your loved one is ill and they did not have a power of attorney or a patient advocate designation in place, you want to contact a probate attorney so that you can file a petition for conservatorship or guardianship. It is possible to get that on an emergency basis, meaning that you can file and they'll have a hearing within 2 or 3 days of your filing it. But what you have to understand is that it is an objective standard of which the probate court judges if you, in fact, have an emergency. So from a conservatorship or financial standpoint, what they're going to look at is, are utilities going to be shut off? Are they going to be set out? Is there something imminent that's going to take place that is going to negatively affect your loved one? So much so, the court needs to, on an emergency basis, without having a full hearing, appoint a conservator. It's the same thing for a guardianship. Is there a medical procedure that needs to take place that someone needs to consent to that is life-threatening to your loved one? And or is your loved one ready to be discharged from the hospital and they can't return home and someone needs to have authority to make placement decisions on their behalf? Obviously, it's your loved one, so we feel like we need to have control and authority now so we can make decisions. But it's important for you to understand that the court judges that on an objective standard, not on a subjective standard. The last thing I'll talk about is things to do if your loved one has passed away. The first thing you should do is open up a decedent's estate. So you need to contact a probate attorney and have them open up a decedent's estate. In order to do that, you'll need a will. If your loved one had a will, you'll need the original will, and you'll also need a death certificate. Now, this is important because at least at the start of the pandemic, what I was encountering for my clients is there was a delay on getting the death certificates because you have to have the original. Probate court in Michigan is closed, especially in Wayne County, Oakland County, and Macomb County. We can't go in. As attorneys, it's caused us to have to operate differently because we're used to walking into court, we're used to talking to the clerks, we have a rapport with them, and we get our paperwork processed. But now we either have to email it or we can fax it. But with a decedent's estate, because the original will is required and the death certificate has to be attached, we have to mail it in. And right now, the court, at least in Wayne County, are processing things 2 to 3 weeks after they receive it. So it's difficult, but we are working our way through it. And lastly, I just want to encourage everyone to hire an attorney that you can relate to. Hire someone who does not talk above your head, who's willing to explain things to you time and again to ensure that you understand what you're asking them to do and who you are selecting to fill these roles to make these important decisions for you. I'm available. I'm in the Metro Detroit area. And again, I am a probate and estate planning attorney. And I thank you for your time and attention.
Great information. That was really, really great information. So Marshall is going to wrap up for us. Do you have anything else? Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Marshall is going to wrap up for us, and then we're going to come back and go through any questions that we have. So I'm going to go back to your presentation, Marshall.
All right. Thanks, Wendy.
Here we go. Can you
All
see it?
right. Can't see it yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, it's on a delay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about self-care, self-compassion. And I think after hearing all the information that was shared today, I know you feel more empowered, ready to take action and take the right action. So as we wait for the slides, I think it's imperative to know that the best thing that we can do for ourselves is to take care of ourselves, and to take care of each other. And so it still hasn't come up,
Still hasn't come up. Okay,
but we can talk about. I don't need it.
you sure?
Yeah, I think so, because we'll be good with this last part, but it's coming. There it goes.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So, and I think it just needs to go in that other PowerPoint.
Okay.
So, so as I was talking about self-care, what is self-care and how to make it a part of your life? And I think that at some level we do things that we say we're practicing self-care, but I think it's a more intentional process. And Wendy, you can go to the next slide. So we just, because I think even as I listen to Shalonda giving us all that great information, these are things that are real to us. And so if we are having to participate in making sure that everything's in order in our life, at the same time, we still need to know that we got to do it and we got to take care of ourselves in the process. So I think that um, as you go to the next slide, I want to just share just a brief definition. So, self care is the intentional choice, and intentional is the operative word here. And I think sometimes we're very passive about what we do. Oh, I got my hair done today, I got my nails done. You know, that's great. But if you can plan self care in your life in an intentional way, then it pays you back a lot more when those times come when you can't really do those things that you enjoy doing for yourself. So we're trying to maintain our own health, wellness, in that physical, mentally, emotionally, spiritual, and relational. And these are very important because sometimes we do more for our physical bodies than we do for our mental or our emotional bodies. And sometimes we are very spiritual people, but our relationships kind of suck, right? We probably don't communicate like we should with our family members. Sometimes we don't know how to decompress and walk away. And like Shalonda was saying, when you get with people who are taking care of your affairs and you can relate to them, that's a level of stress that you take off your plate. And I think we all talked about getting with those individuals, those professionals who know what they're doing and they have you at top of mind. And when they're with you, right? So really taking action after this is going to be the best way to have more self-care time for yourself. And so, Wendy, as we go to the next slide, I want to just share some, ways that you may be doing, and maybe you're not. So, accepting that it's okay to have needs. And I think that, if you're in a position where people are relying on you every single day, whether it's through your work, in your family, folks are always calling you because they need your help. And they may be your clients, they may be your loved ones, but also know that you have needs. And giving more than you have is not taking care of yourself. And there are some things that happen when you do that, and it kind of backfires. So, passive behaviors or irritability and being angry, we call it stress, but when it really is us not doing what we need to do to take care of ourselves. So, we don't want to get things confused. So, when you take care of yourself, the 100% of the time, you're able to give more and more to other people. That is something that is specific to you. a lot of folks want to give us advice about what we need to do for ourselves, but you know what you need to do. You know what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel satisfied with life. So taking care of yourself, figuring out what are those things that make you feel like you are more empowered, to take steps. If you need to go to the store and pick up groceries and you can't do it, who can you call on to do it? Getting a plan in place that of support. And I think Marlon talked about this a little bit about making sure that the people who are supporting you are the people who you can actually depend on, who actually know what they're doing. Staying connected with people, places, and activities that make you feel good. Another thing that we don't really think about, but it's a big one for me, is practicing slow and deep breathing. And so you clear out a lot of clutter in your brain when you slow it down and you breathe and you take those breaths that clears your mind. And you know what? If you do that like every day, every morning, as Marlon talked about, making your rituals during the day, it will take you so much further. And then sometimes, you think you need to run off to a massage therapist when all you need to do is practice breathing, right? And so just those simple things that don't cost a lot of money, that don't take you away from, your family all the time, because now we're still sort of restricted in the way that we move around, just picking up on those little tips. YouTube is full of them. There are a lot of videos and audios that you can pick up that are free, that you can actually learn how to meditate. And if you're a person that prays, pray and meditate. There are combinations of things that you can do to really help yourself feel good. Put your phone and tablet away for an hour. In this day and time where we're restricted and moving around, we're on our computers more, we're on our phones more. But if you do that and practice that whether it's an hour, whether it's 20 minutes, or whether it's through the night, you turn your phone off so it's not ringing. It keeps your brain from being on overdrive. It keeps you calm. And especially if you're in a profession where you're always in need, and yet you don't have a lot of time to take care of yourself. Looking for opportunities to laugh. Laughter, definitely changes your atmosphere, changes the way you feel about things. It's a great distraction from things that you cannot avoid. So laughter is a good medicine, as I say. Also, visiting the doctor for checkups. If you aren't feeling good, laughter can't change that. So if you need a professional to take a look at you, then do that. Set that appointment. Get a family member to take you to the appointment if you're afraid to go for yourself. And in this time of COVID, where everybody thinks that the first sign and symptom that they have is that, and that makes us afraid, and it goes back to those emotions, fear is doing it afraid. I mean, fear, if you fear something, just do it afraid, and know that the outcome is going to be much better if you get in front of a situation concerning your health or mental health than just letting it just slide. Spend time alone. This is very important. I was talking to a mom today, and she said sometimes she just goes out and sit in her car for 10 minutes. She knows she doesn't have an hour, but 10 minutes for her is self-care, is getting away, is listening to the radio. She's a mom first, but she knows she needs that time. So we all need it, and sometimes you have to take that time and do it, and just do it, and know that when you go back to a situation that you left, you'll feel much better about helping your family members. And even if you're at work, take a walk around the building if you can. Do these little things that you don't have to always go to the gym for. We put off things, say, oh, well, they can't go to the gym because I don't have anyone to do this. I don't have a way. Just take a walk. And those are things that will help you to feel better and taking care of yourself. And also, self-compassion is a term we use because when you show your self-compassion, that means that if I can treat you the way that I treat myself, then I'm doing a better job than treating you better than I treat myself. So showing your self-compassion, knowing that you have needs, and knowing that if you do for yourself first, and we're not talking about astronomical things that, you there's no reason not to do it, really, because if we're at home and we don't have a lot of places that we can go right now, we can find little things to, be better fit and more empowered to take action. The next slide, Wendy. So we do have some information that has been uploaded to the Eventbrite, and we also have a couple of websites here. I do have a link on my website with a lot of online therapy resources. Most practitioners are 100% online. If they're not, they're doing it via Zoom. If not, when you go to some of your facilities, they'll come to your car. There are a lot of different ways that we're adjusting in the mental health and emotional well-being world, but online therapy and online counseling, online support is, just so ready to meet our needs. If you don't know whether you need help or not, just call anyway. Nobody's going to make you say anything that you don't want to say. They're going to probably take a 5 or 10 minute assessment to ask you some questions to see if you're in a crisis. If you're in a crisis, you're in a crisis. We need to get to you. But if you're a person that just need an outlet, need someone to give you some information or just to be heard, those links are on my website, and it's going to be on the COVID-19 resources, and it'll take you right to what is needed. And so Nicole also has a survival kit she talked about earlier that's uploaded, and also she has a link on her website as well. And I think that we're giving you all the best information that you can do. There's a crisis plan that I put together. It's about 12, 13 pages. It'll walk you through how to create a crisis plan when you need it, when you're ready. And it will help you to include a lot of the resources that Shalonda provided you, Attorney Shalonda. We got some stuff in there to help you to document where your kids are, if they're in college, numbers. So these are things that you can have at your fingertips. If you need it, you can grab it at a moment's notice. And so it's just going to help you make your life much easier. And I think that's it for me, Wendy.
Okay. Go. Okay, we're back and we have some good questions here. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's start. Let me go to the comments. Okay. The first one I have is question. How do you know if the attorney you are using is legit or telling you the best information? And can you, our lawyer, Shalonda, advise people out of state?
Okay, so unfortunately, no, I cannot advise people out of state, but I do have a good network where we refer clients out of state to the state, to an attorney in their state. Every lawyer has to take the bar exam in their state in order to practice law. Something else that I didn't say during my presentation is that, at least in the state of Michigan, the only people qualified to create an estate plan for you are attorneys. Anyone else creating estate plans is what we call the unauthorized practice of law. And it's actually against the law. So you do need an attorney. Wendy, what was the other part of it? How do you know if you have a good attorney?
Right. Yeah. How do you know if they're legit and they're giving you good advice? And
Okay,
do you have a good attorney?
Right. So there is a bar in your state. So in the state of Michigan, there is a website. It is MICHBAR, MICHBAR.org. Any person representing themselves to be an attorney's name will be out there. It's real simple. You put in the last name, you put in the first name, and they pop up. We all have P numbers. It'll tell you if we're licensed. It'll tell you if our license is suspended, if we're disbarred. It'll tell you everything about us to let you know if you are with a licensed and practicing attorney. Yeah, so that's kind of how you know. I would say when you meet an attorney.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was just going to
No,
say
go ahead.
when you meet an attorney, I say select an attorney the way you select a doctor, because I promise you, if you don't have a good rapport with your attorney, you're not going to have a good attorney-client relationship. And you need that, especially when you're dealing with probate and especially when you're dealing with estate planning. I have some estate planning clients. I've had all types of situations. And one of the things that people often say to me is that they feel comfortable because I'm not judgmental. And I can tell you stories, but we don't have time for that. But you need to have someone whom you feel comfortable talking to. Your attorney cannot help you if you have secrets. They can't protect you if you don't feel comfortable telling their secrets. So as an example, I had a married couple come to me to do estate planning, and they did it. And then the husband calls me and tells me that he has like a chick on the side for like 20 years and he wants to have something planned for her too. So
Oh no, not the side chick.
yeah, it was a side chick, right? And a side chick for a long time. So the thing is, you have to be comfortable with your attorney. Otherwise, you're not going to get the right plan, you know?
Okay. Oh, wow. Nothing for the side chick. Okay.
Sorry.
That's a good story, though.
Yeah.
Marlon, here's a question for you. Is there a minimum amount of finances required to begin financial advising?
Mm.
That's from Shonda.
You're
We
muted.
can't hear you.
Am I on now?
Yep, you're on now. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I didn't mute me, so I didn't know I was muted.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, no, there is no minimum. We will we'll start you from where you are and get you to where you want to be. So, no, we've got investments for all levels.
Okay. And another question is, what kind of life insurance policy should every family have? And that's from Dorothy Tanay.
Well, a policy, number one, and when I say a policy, means you need life insurance, and term insurance is, in essence, you're renting insurance because the only way you can use term insurance is if you were to die. So at a minimum, you should have term insurance, and the rates are extremely reasonable. So there's really no reason not to have at least term. If you want to use life insurance as an investment, then that's when you want to look at universal life, various types of universal life policies, index universal life policies, guaranteed universal life policies, whole life, but those have an investment element, and in some cases you're able to not only get a death benefit, but you also are able to save money for retirement, tax-free for retirement, and also use 90% of that for long-term care.
Okay, good. Let's see. I think that might be all we have. Just checking here.
So Wendy, just real quick, and I don't know how many people are still here because we've gone way over, but one of the things I forgot to mention in the CARES Act is, again, find someone that you trust, that knows what's going on from a financial standpoint. But the CARES Act has a provision in there that allows you to take money out of your 401ks, even if you're less than 59 and a half. You can take up to $100,000 out without being penalized the 10% that you would normally be hit with. And the tax that you owe on it, you have 3 years to pay it. So you don't have to pay all of that at once. That goes for 401ks and IRAs as well. And that's a piece of the
Okay,
the CARES Act.
that's good to know.
Yep.
Good information. Okay, anybody else have some closing information? Nicole, Shalonda?
No,
No? Okay.
no.
Well, from the comments, everybody seemed to really enjoy this evening. I have, this is excellent. I'm taking notes. It was needed. Definitely taking notes. Great information, great information. And thanks for sharing. Um, and why is a side chick in the will? But okay.
Just so you know, I didn't put her in a will. What we did was we got a life insurance policy on him so that when he died, she was the beneficiary of the policy.
And his wife didn't know that.
Well, you know.
Okay. All right, no comment.
I don't do marriage counseling.
That's when we go to Marshall. Marshall,
And
that
she
couple needed
probably
you.
did.
Yeah, that couple needed you.
Those entanglements.
Oh, I had that couple.
Okay.
Yes,
Learning a
ma'am.
lot.
So exciting.
Well, thank you all. And thank you, Jen, behind the scenes. And I hope everybody out there really got a lot of information tonight. And definitely feel free to reach out to anybody on the panel, or if you can't find them, let me know. And just send an email and to events at WC Launch, and I will make sure I forward your information to them as well. And I hope everybody has a good, safe evening. And oh, let's see. This was great. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So hopefully we might end up doing this again if there's more needs. So good night, everybody, and thank you
Good
for
night.
participating.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Good
Wendy.
night.
Bye-bye.